Multiple large storms are forming across the United States, and this is going to bring the potential for more severe weather over the next couple of days, including the potential for tornadoes. In addition to that, we'll be watching for the potential for our first snowfall of the season across parts of the Ohio Valley, Midwest, and as well as the Northeast later this week. A large cold blast is also coming to the United States, and we have a very rare bomb cyclone forming off the coast of Washington, which will likely bring heavy rainfall and some very heavy snowfall to the Pacific Northwest over the next few days. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about this crazy weather pattern that we are dealing with. Let's go ahead and begin with what's happening across the country this morning. And I want to begin with this large trough that is currently deepened across areas in the Central Plains. This is what brought a round of thunderstorms to areas like Texas and Oklahoma this morning. For the most part, it was just damaging winds. We did end up seeing a couple of tornadoes, but by no means did we really see a tornado outbreak. A lot of the tornadoes that we did see were very brief, so again, nothing really significant overall. This is continuing to lift to the north and east, and throughout the day today and as well as into tonight, we are going to have a risk for a couple more tornadoes in the lower Mississippi Valley, and maybe a small cold core setup setting up across Kansas and southeast Nebraska and western Missouri later this afternoon, so something to watch for there. The East Coast is dry for the time being, but I do think that'll change later this week, and then the Pacific Northwest, at least for today, is somewhat quiet, but as we go into tomorrow, we are going to see a bomb cyclone form off the coast, and that will bring the potential for very heavy rainfall, snow, and maybe even a few isolated severe storms. There are several large storms that will be impacting the United States over the next 7 days. We are going to begin with what's happening most imminently and then what is happening later on this week. Let's begin with what the severe weather threat is for today. We have a large marginal threat of severe weather extending from Iowa and Kansas and Nebraska back into the lower Mississippi Valley with a slight risk across Louisiana and southeast Texas. The main concern for the rest of today will be damaging winds. There's also an elevated tornado threat back over in Louisiana and southeast Texas, which is where we could see a couple of tornadoes later today. There is a chance that we do go live for this later today, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified if and when we do go live. Overall, the tornado threat, though, is relatively low across the board. It's a 2% tornado risk, which is relatively conditional back up into the Central Plains. Again, maybe a brief tornado or two, but overall, the cold core setup that we have for today back over in Kansas has downtreaded quite a bit since last night, so I'm not expecting an outbreak as of right now. As we go into tomorrow, which is tossing trampolines on Tacos Tuesday, we do have a marginal threat back over in Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, and as well as Louisiana, which is another area that we could see some isolated damaging winds and maybe a tornado. Overall, the tornado threat isn't super high today, but if we do get a couple of discrete supercells back over in Louisiana later this afternoon, I definitely could see a tornado threat ramping up, and I think the best chance for that will be between about 3 and 8 p.m. So notice where the tornado parameter values are the highest here in central Louisiana, right around 5 p.m. or so. So again, I think that time frame is really going to be the greatest chance for a couple of tornadoes, and maybe even back up into central and eastern Kansas and western Missouri, but the risk up there is again relatively low. So in nature, this line of thunderstorms has weakened out. The computer model is still showing it, but it is a much weaker line of storms as of at least this afternoon. Eventually, as we get closer to 3 to 4 o'clock, we'll continue to see some isolated damaging winds and a brief tornado embedded in this line of thunderstorms stretching from Missouri back into East Texas. Eventually, by about 5 o'clock, we're really watching for any discrete cells that can fire up here in central and southern Louisiana. And in the case that we do see a tornado on the ground, there is a chance again that we'll go live, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Eventually, by 6 to 7 o'clock, these storms continue to fire up and move eastbound, and again, daylight heating is really going to kick up more instability, which is going to lead to, again, a couple of tornadoes. After sunset, this line will continue to march east towards Mississippi. It will eventually weaken out more into just some isolated damaging winds, and the tornado threat should be pretty close to zero after about 10 o'clock tonight. And back over in the Central Plains, we are going to be mostly dealing with just some rainfall today, but there's a chance that we could get an isolated tornado in this cold core tornado setup. The best chance for that will be between 3 and 7 o'clock, so just stay weather aware if you're in eastern Kansas, maybe near Kansas City, back into southwest Iowa and western Missouri. Again, I think the risk is relatively low, honestly, but definitely something to watch for just in case. Now, let's talk more about this bomb cyclone that is forming off the coast of Washington, and obviously that is a weird term. Many people don't think that's actually a thing. Well, it is. A bomb cyclone is when we have a low pressure system that rapidly intensifies in the span of 24 hours, at least with a 24 millibar pressure drop. This is by Tuesday morning. This is the low pressure system that we're watching for that is going to rapidly intensify. Notice the pressure here. It's at 994 millibars. Look at where it gets to by late Tuesday night. 938 millibars. That is the equivalent of a Category 4 hurricane when it comes to pressure. Now, it isn't going to produce Category 4 type impacts, but this is obviously a very significant low pressure system. It is absolutely insane what we're seeing here just off the coast of Washington. And I do want to point out that this is going to bring a ton of rainfall and snow to areas in the Pacific Northwest over the next few days. And eventually, as we go later into the week, there will be a piece of this that does break off and moves over into the basically border there of Canada and as well as the United States, which could end up bringing some snowfall perhaps to areas in the northern plains as we go into next week. But again, that is a little bit more uncertain. But nonetheless, this is a very impressive storm that we're going to talk more about in detail here in just a few minutes. Here's what the weather pattern looks like for the next 7 to 10 days in nature. So we are going to have another trough that is going to deepen as we go later into this week. By Wednesday, a large-scale low-pressure system will form over the Midwest. This will usher in cooler weather from Canada with a very strong northwesterly flow in the jet stream back over from the Rocky Mountains into the Central Plains and as well as the Ohio Valley. We are expecting a trough to just sit up into the northeast over the next several days, really beginning around Wednesday or Thursday and then going through the weekend. That should lead to some snowfall and some heavy rainfall up that direction and perhaps even some lake effect snow around the weekend. Eventually by next week, things do become a bit more uncertain, but if a little piece of that bomb cyclone breaks off into the United States, there could be another shot for some snowfall maybe in the Midwest as we go into next week. But again, that is still 7 days away, so definitely a lot of uncertainty there. So for the next few days, this trough that is over into the Central Plains right now will lift to the north and east, bringing some heavy rainfall to the Midwest and also maybe some isolated severe weather to the lower Mississippi Valley and Gulf Coast tomorrow. Eventually, as we go into Wednesday, some snow will be possible in the northern plains. By Thursday, a new trough will form back over in the Great Lakes. This is actually going to be having the potential here to become a bomb cyclone as well if it's able to intensify fast enough. This will bring the potential for some snowfall, but exactly where that happens does remain uncertain. Eventually, by the time we go into Thursday into Friday, some more snow and rain will fall in the northeast, and eventually by Friday into Saturday, this will start to spin offshore, leading to mostly a drier weather pattern for the Midwest and Ohio Valley for the weekend. A little bit of snow still possible in the northeast, and then by Monday, again, maybe a little piece of that bomb cyclone breaking off could bring some snowfall to the Midwest, and eventually by next week, again, things do become much more uncertain. Early look at Thanksgiving. This is what the GFS model shows right around Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Again, I'm not really seeing much right now, but obviously this is still over 7 days out, so things could definitely change. And then in terms of total snowfall accumulation, this is obviously a rough estimate over the next 7 to 10 days. Take it with a grain of salt, especially in the Northeast and the Ohio Valley. But for right now, lots of snow expected back over on the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest, where we could see feet of snow, perhaps even some spots picking up as much as 100 inches of snow in the higher elevations back over on the West Coast for the next 7 days. Again, the Ohio Valley and Northeast is still a big question mark. I think tomorrow we are going to talk a lot more about this and the potential possibilities of seeing accumulating snowfall across those areas, and then maybe a few inches of snow back over North Dakota and Northwest Minnesota, and maybe a coating for parts of Minnesota. But again, it does not look like anything significant for the time being for most of the Midwest. In terms of total rainfall accumulation, a lot of beneficial rainfall is coming. There is a huge drought across the country. This is all going to help. The only area where it's not going to help nearly as much and where we could see flooding is one spot being the Gulf Coast, with some areas seeing 4 to even maybe up to 8 inches of rain over the next 48 hours. And then back over on the West Coast, we could have some spots in Northern California get as much as 12 inches of rainfall over the next really several days. So definitely going to be something to watch for here back over in Northern California. But definitely something that we're going to have to watch for, because flooding is going to be a big concern as we are going to be seeing an atmospheric river back over in the Pacific Northwest here over the next few days. Now, the temperatures are also going to change quite a bit. We have a large cold air mass that'll build across the Ohio Valley and the Northeast as we go into the middle and end of this week. That is going to bring much colder than normal weather to areas in the Northeast especially, so definitely going to be something to watch for over the next 7 days. But the temperature anomalies basically showing us how warm or cold it'll be from average across the country in degrees Fahrenheit. As we go into Wednesday and Thursday, below average temperatures will be filling in across much of the United States. The coldest of that will be in the Ohio Valley Thursday and Friday, with many areas as much as 15 to 20 degrees below average. And even into the southeast areas like Florida will be as much as 15 to 20 degrees below average. So you might have to pull out those winter jackets if you're in Florida, as low temperatures could fall into the low 50s. It's going to get pretty chilly down there. By the time we get into Sunday into Monday, that warm weather will try to return for much of the country, and then beyond Monday, things do become a lot more uncertain. A big announcement before we end today's video: in only about a day or two, we are going to have merch out for Christmas at shopmaxvelocity.net, which there's a link in the description to check out our store. This is going to be our next design. This is a rough sketch. It's going to be colored in here in just a couple of days, and we are going to have shirts out for this. We're going to have stickers, mugs, a lot of different stuff. This will be a limited release for Christmas, so definitely going to be something that I would highly recommend picking up. Again, we'll make another announcement when it is officially out, but I am very excited about this next collection that we're going to have on shopmaxvelocity.net. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.